So there are two things that we need to address to help you maximize food motivation. The first one is how you set yourself up with equipment and food when you reach the stage of training outside the house. And your second one is how you feed your dog her regular meals and what you're feeding. This has a huge impact on your dog's attitude towards food. So this is an example of what not to do. Don't feed your dog like this. Here this dog is getting all of her food in one go. Even if she's been asked to sit and to wait before getting it, that's just one behaviour for a whole lot of incredibly tasty food. That's the other part of things here. Her food is very tasty. She's got wet meat in there and it's really yummy, squummy stuff. Just as people value things more if they've worked hard to earn them, so dogs value food more if they've worked hard to earn it. Not only that, but working for food provides mental stimulation, and research shows that given a choice, animals prefer to work for their food than to receive it for free. If your dog won't work for her food yet, it's very simple. You just start training with the food, and at the point where the dog walks away or refuses to eat the food or it disengages, then you just stop training and you put the rest of the food back into the bag or back into the fridge, and you stop training until the next mealtime. It's important that you don't offer any further food. You don't take sympathy on your dog and think they might be hungry. You don't tempt them with some tidbits. There's just no more food until the next mealtime, and then again you try and train with their meals. Pretty soon your dog will start to work for her food. She may go hungry for a few days, but that's okay. She's not going to die or starve. Just let her be hungry and then she'll start to work for the food. You want to try to match up the level of distractions in the environment where you're training with how tasty the food is. This means that if you're training at home, which is a low distraction environment, you want to use something not very tasty, like dry food or kibble. The one exception to this is recalls. You always want to use tasty food for your recalls, even when you're training indoors. But for all your other behaviours, for sits, downs, heels, stay, watch me and everything else, you should use kibble or dry food when you are training at home. And when you're training outside of the house, somewhere with higher distractions, you want to use something really tasty so you can compete with those distractions. That's when you pull out the big guns, like the really tasty wet food. So you can see why it's a bit problematic if you already feed a really tasty food at home for your dog's normal meals, because where are you going to go when you need to pull out the big guns? We love to feed our dogs tasty food and to see them enjoy their meals, but if your dog is getting wet or raw tasty meals twice a day in a low distraction environment at home, your training treats are not going to be that amazing. Think about using a hierarchy of food reinforcers. If even your dog's meals twice a day are very tasty, you've lost the whole bottom of the hierarchy. This is a sample hierarchy, and it may not represent what your dog's hierarchy is like, but it is pretty typical. It is also quite difficult to train with wet or raw food. It's very messy, and especially with raw food, it's unhygienic because you have to touch it with your fingers and handle it a lot. Training some behaviours does involve throwing the reinforcer or the food, and this is difficult to do with wet or raw food. The end result is that people who do feed wet or raw end up using other treats for their training, so then their dog is getting its meals plus extra training treats on top of its meals. We then often see dogs gaining excess weight. Think about this from the position of establishing a really good attitude towards food and high food motivation. The best thing to feed is a high quality kibble. This does not mean, though, that your dog will only eat kibble, because you are going to be feeding your dog other highly nutritious foods when you're out and about training. So let's turn to that and take a look at how to prepare yourself for training away from the house. Treat pouches are great for training indoors, but when you're training outdoors with a bulky coat on, they don't seem to fit over your coat very well, and they also tend to slip round in front of you. I much prefer these. These are Addis beakers, and they're available on Amazon. They're screw-top flasks, and they can go in the dishwasher. They don't have any zips or velcro or moving parts, and they fit neatly into your coat pocket, just like this. I like to use two of these. I have one here for my ordinary treats, as it were, when I'm out and about, so my sits, my downs, my heel work, my stays, and that goes in my left pocket because that's the side my dog walks on. And then I have another one here with my recall treats, my squishy, delicious stuff, and that goes in my right pocket. So when I feed my young dog, I don't give her all of her food. I give her a little sprinkle of food because I feel sorry that the other older dogs are getting their food and she's not getting anything at all otherwise. So I give her a few little bits in the bowl, and then I keep aside the rest of the food in the green tub there. If I'm training in the house, I would then use that food in the green tub to train with her in the house. When I'm training out and about, I will take that food and I'll put it into one of my Addis beakers, and then I'll add in some extra tasty stuff and shake it all up together so she gets her kibble mixed in here with some roast chicken. This would be for her ordinary treats. It would not really be tasty enough for her recall treats. Now, not all your dogs will be happy to work for kibble away from the house. So if your dog won't work for kibble, you're going to have to just have, the chicken, the cheese, the other stuff in there. So I realised I needed a bit more in my pot, and I'm getting some cheddar out now, which is an excellent treat to use. Again, I'm still making up my ordinary pot here, not my recall pot. And then I just shake it all up together. It's very Blue Peter. And here's one I made earlier. Next, I'm going to prep my recall treats. So here I've got some really tasty Bob and Lush wet food, and also some pate. I'm going to stick with the Bob and Lush today though. So you can use any tasty gourmet wet dog food that you like really, or if you want to use raw, you can use raw mince too. The idea is something squishy and wet and disgusting and tasty. And then what you're going to do is get a spoon, which is what I'm off to get, because obviously it's so gross, you're going to get it all over your fingers. So you just squidge out a blob like this on the spoon, and you let your dog bite that off the plastic spoon. So here I've got my ordinary treats on the right and my tasty recall treats on the left, and I'm ready to go. You don't need to use food like this forever. The dog that you saw eating out of a bowl earlier is my elderly Weimaraner Slate. She's 13 years old now and she gets whatever she wants whenever she wants it. I tend to think that once a dog has established a good relationship with food and the right attitude towards food, then often that remains even once you start to feed other types of food and not to follow these principles anymore. However, I do think it is best to begin from a position of maximum food motivation and to apply all of these principles with any new dog or any young dog in your household. Equally, if you're having any problems with focus, distractions, dogs not coming back and responding to you when you recall them, then again, you need to make sure you're applying all of these principles for sure. Once your dog seems to be well trained, responds to you, comes back when you call, and has a high level of food motivation, then you can relax some of these principles. If you do relax them, watch your dog closely and make sure that their performance and behaviour doesn't deteriorate. If it does, it's an indication that you can't relax the principles for your particular dog.